Very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my friends. Welcome back. I am Saurabh Parikh, your friend. I'm back again with you, in front of you. So today's topic is a little bit in more detailed about disciplined agile. We have conducted a series of disciplined agile webinars, and we'll continue to do it from ProThoughts perspective. Today's topic, the reason I selected this topic deliberately, because I wanted you guys to, really appreciate the value of a disciplined agile. Those who have already gone through this, so probably the assumption here is you guys know at least the basic of disciplined agile, and you guys probably would have either heard somewhere. It's not a new concept though. It's a pretty old concept, going way back to early 2010s, etc. And I really wanted to give a touch in detail, in depth about the life cycles today. So my whole agenda today, guys, is going to be talk about the 7 different life cycles in the discipline agile. Those who are very new to the discipline agile probably just can read about discipline agile. However, I've got one single slide which will make your clarity absolutely fair. And I'll few quick things. I'll limit my talk probably to 45 minutes or so, or probably a little lesser, and then open up for Q&A. So you have a questions panel there, and you can pose your questions. Don't wait for typing your questions in case you have as and when, but I'll look at the questions after 45 minutes, because my focus will be onto the presentation right now. Okay, so let me share my presentation, guys, to you. All right, let's go going. All right, so I'm very glad to first of all inform you that we've got I think one of the very first partners to PMI offering the disciplined agile training formally, and the batches launches from August onwards. So my friends, in case you are interested in this kind of trainings, there are various certifications. I covered it in one of the webinars. In case you are further interested, of course, you can go to ProThoughts.co.in website. I'm sure you'll get a lot of information from there. And if you are still you want to go through the details, there are links available in ProThoughts.co.in, so you could go through those as well. So we are launching our first kind of a training program in the world, in the month of August. Okay, so that's a very good thing. Second thing, fortunately, I got myself certified in the world of Agile from a discipline Agile perspective. So I got not only just certified discipline Agilist, that's the first level of a certification, but the second level also I got through in terms of certified discipline Agile Lean Scrum Master, and moved to the third level as well, which is the master level, like in Six Sigma you have a master belt. So you have certified discipline Agile instructor. So now, being an instructor, I am authorized to provide the formal trainings on this. Okay. So quickly about myself, I am. So this is agenda building. So I'm just going to quickly talk about a discipline Agile introduction, and then I'm probably going to move to the life cycles of this. So about me, I have 26 years of industry experience, and been part of this project management community since a long time now, and this is my passion. So initially started, just like many of you, initially started with the traditional approach. That's still not gone away, of course. Still PMP trainings are still in place, but then towards Agile, and then towards discipline Agile, right? So that's my little bit of a background. About ProThoughts, so the ProThoughts world is almost like 6 years plus now. So one of the very promising and one of the most, in fact, I would say top 10 training organizations in India. And when I talk about that, we only leave project management. So that's a differentiator we carry. So we do whatever we do is only on the project management. That's all, nothing else. So whether it's supposed to be your project management trainings, or it's e-learnings, or it's the world of consulting, professional services, the corporate trainings, or it's the bookstore. So I'm sure many of you know that we have got a first kind of a bookstore only on the project management books, and something that you'll probably find on this another website. That's another kind of agile project that we did, actually speaking. Now, we do a lot of projects. In fact, internally we do all the projects in the agile way. So this is one of the classic project that we did in terms of the another website, and it's all open free for you guys. So whoever is interested in terms of learning, I always believe in, whatever you learn, just unlearn it. Just unlearn it, learn it, and relearn it. This is the one thing that the great Buddha also taught you, and a lot of good people also taught you as well. So this is what I strongly believe, and you guys probably, those who are interested, probably can go to this website called talkprojectmanagement.com, which will talk about the blogs, the content on the project management, program management, portfolio management on a traditional side of it, and of course the agile project management, and lots of blogs on agile, various methodologies and frameworks, and of course discipline agile as well. You'll be able to spot the webinars also on that, right? And of course some of the facts and surveys we conducted. In fact, there'll be some interviews also of the people and some feedback and reviews as well you'll find on this website. So great. So quickly on the discipline agile. First of all, my thanks to all of you. In huge numbers you signed up today. I don't know what brought you to this, huge numbers. Was it a topic? Because I thought, I might have a very restricted participation today, because the subject is a deep dive. But thanks, I'm actually delighted to speak. Discipline agile in a nutshell, you can figure out from this slide. One slide, it talks 10 slides, okay, on discipline agile. So when I talk about discipline agile, it's not a framework, it's not a methodology, okay? It's a hybrid toolkit, we call it as. It's a hybrid toolkit. What do you mean by hybrid toolkit? It gives you an option, okay? It gives you a way of working. It provides you multiple choices. And this is a team-based approach. When we talk about agile, of course, it's a team-based, no doubt about it. The world of project management in agile perspective is all team-based. So it's discipline agile. Take a move forward, take a leap from the agile world, and build on top of any of your, whether you talk about Scrum, whether you talk about Lean Kanban, whether you talk about SAFe, all this, right, as individual frameworks. And the discipline agile as a toolkit is a guidance. So it's primarily sit on top of all this. Okay, it's truly a guidance, and it gives you a opportunity to select or choose your own life cycle. So this is where I'm going to talk about the life cycle world today. So what is a life cycle? So of course, my friends here in the room, most of you, I don't need to explain you what our life cycle is. Your experience in the life cycle, but it's end-to-end from an initiation to the closure of the project. Now, this kind of a definition, right? Initiation and closure, my traditional friends would have heard about this from many years, from a traditional life cycle, which was, concept coined in 1970 by the Vincent Royce. And I still remember how, this happened for, just a quick 30 seconds on it. Early 1970s, post 50s, and there were a lot of projects used to happen in terms of the world of defense, okay? And the strategies used to be carved out, and there were a lot of upcoming initiatives which we call this a projects there. And how this thing worked over there in a very traditional world, be it a manufacturing, you are talking about a plant manufacturing, or you're talking about a construction of a mall, or a construction of a house, or construction of anything. This construction domain, or the manufacturing domain, all this primarily, and of course the defense one, came across the sequential model of life cycle from those. When IT industry grew, after the 80s primarily, it also followed the same, the Winston Roy's principle of the traditional model. And then the same model of your requirements gathering, design, construction, testing, integration, and closure, go live transition. So those life cycles, so those phases called sequential phases, kept on going till the time you had the world of IT industry and IT projects started failing. Why? Because the people couldn't apply. The requirements kept changing from a stakeholders perspective, day in, day out. So there was a absolutely new approach which was needed, and that's where the great folks, about 18 odd folks, met in Utah in 2001, or rather 2000, and developed this great world of Scrum manifesto. I would rather say Agile manifesto. And the world of this Scrum, which is coming from rugby game, right? It came, which is nothing but huddle. So this huddle game came through Agile manufacturing, the Agile life cycle, and that Agile life cycle came into IT. Same with the lean concept. So the lean coming from Toyota production days, nothing new. The Toyota production system was one of the oldest one, and we took about the principles of elimination of the waste. So the lean came through over the period of time. So the history of this Agile and lean, it's not something new. It's been almost like 2 decades now, almost plus. We are trying to just discipline PMI, I would rather say, trying to build a layer on top of this. And being a discipline Agile, which is a top layer on this, it just differentiates the way you work and the way I work. So quickly starting, guys, with the first model called V model in the world of the life cycle of a traditional life of the projects. If you look at it, it's very simple, right? If you simply look at it, every phase, right, whether it's the requirements or architecture or design, follows each other. And of course, iterations go back. If you're not happy with them, then go back. But then the bulk of work, it's been taken care of here. For example, you're going to do architecture, right? And a very big, architecture you need to do, whether it's an information technology project or whether it's a business project, it's a business process re-engineering project, or any project for that matter. Architecture, redesign or reframework. If it has to be done, then you just wait for your design till the entire architecture is finished. That's the problem. So I don't have a low-hanging fruit coming in very early, which means my stakeholders do not value the deliverables because they don't see it. They don't feel it. Unless you see it, unless you feel it, how do you taste it? You can't, right? You can't taste the success. So there was a definite change required, absolutely definite change. And thanks to the huge information technology world, which took this approach. And I think, 1995, 96? Of course. And this is the origin of the Scrum. Now, why I took this particular slide for you guys, because this is the easiest and most promising life cycle which has been followed in the real world. If I have to bring a percentage within the world of Agile community, right, I would not be surprised if you go up to 70% using only Scrum-based life cycles. So it is Scrum, as I said, it's a rugby-based game, right? You huddle. So the team huddle here primarily. So in this kind of a world of Agile, many of you would be pretty much aware of this. What happens? You have a so-called product backlog, okay, where you have a stakeholders requirements, which obviously come from. So your initiation, planning, execution, all these things do not go anywhere. They're still available in Agile as well. You have something called product visioning as a visioning exercise over there. You have something called a sprint vision. So sprint is nothing but iteration vision. You have a release vision before the sprint vision, right? So all these things keep happening in Agile world as well, and so big Scrum. So in a world of Scrum, what happens is you have a product vision. So from a product vision, you have a product backlog. From a product backlog, what you do primarily, you create your multiple releases. So you have a release vision and you have a release backlog. From a release backlog, right? What happens is you create your multiple iterations. It could be 1 week, 2 weeks, generally 2 to 4 weeks, heard about. And now in the latest avatars of the Agile implement or Scrum implementation, it's generally been kept 1 to 2 weeks. So what is the product backlog? It's nothing but prioritized set of all the requirements from the stakeholders. If you have what a 1 to 10 requirements, for example, and if I have to do a prioritization, I do 4 of them prioritize and put it into the version. That version I can do only one a big requirement. I break it down into various kind of a user stories, and every user story can be brought down into multiple tasks. So this is what we have, you guys have lived with, right? What Discipline Agile do? Discipline Agile is an agnostic, is a framework agnostic. We call it as a hybrid approach from the perspective of you don't use typical terms like sprint over that. So what do you use? You use iteration. Okay. Now, ceremonies and the artifacts. Ceremonies like your, meeting on the sprint planning, meeting on the sprint review, sprint retrospectives, right? All this kind of meetings are still possible in the DA lifecycle. So the reason I showed you this particular slide was just to ensure that you go back and don't forget that yes, this was a basic is still being used. Now, how do we convert into a first kind of a basic life cycle from the perspective of the DA? So I'm going to talk about the first or a basic life cycle, but before that, okay, I want to show you something. In the world of Discipline Agile, phases are still there, and you might be wondering what these phases are doing. It's just a logical evolution how the project goes. So those who are champion in the Agile world or Scrum world or the world which started from last two decades, you would probably pretty much aware of this particular phase called construction phase here. If you see my mouse cursor here, all your work has been done or projects are executed in the construction phase. However, the Discipline Agile go full-fledged life cycle. What is a full-fledged life cycle model? It has got 2 more phases attached to the construction, which means the inception and transition. So what happens in inception? Your vision, mission, goals, objective at a high level, right, which are being mapped to your, your product vision, which you're going to release, which have got a release vision, and all this thing. So the planning, 1, high level planning, not a detailed planning at all, a very high level planning. 2, the risks, high level risk, earlier mitigation or avoidance of the risk, better for it, right? 3, all these are early in the game in inception. 3, team building, the envisaging what kind of a team would I need. Okay. 4, approximately how much is the so-called if you remember project charter in the traditional world. So you have something called kind of a charter. We do not want to call it Agile charter, but it's just a very probably 2 lines saying that okay, this is my product vision and this is my high level timelines and high level estimate. So your time and budget, you know that in Agile remain fixed, scope is variable, correct? And all these things happen in inception phase. Some of the Agile folks, right, practicing Agile people would always talk about inception as a phase 0 or iteration 0, right? This is nothing but a very important planning phase. And that actual phase 1 or iteration 1, or rather I would rather say the sprint 1 would start in the construction. So your sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, the construction goes on. And then once you have your product which is ready, right, you have your deployment been done, which we call it as a consumable product, right, which should have some kind of a minimum value attached from a stakeholder perspective, and then you do a transition. So the transition phase is also attached to the construction. The construction phase output will give you a consumable solution in terms of your build. Okay. Now, when you try and deploy, okay, the construction talks about your build and deploy, build and deploy, build and deploy. A transition meaning you hand it over to the operations. You release out, and to the operations team. So the transition primarily talks about once I am built, from my initiation perspective, if I talk about this, point number one, how will we deploy? What methods we will use to deploy? Who will deploy? Would there be an automated DevOps team? Will I use automated testing, manual testing methods, etc.? Would my DevOps strategy will be integrated to this? Would I use CI/CD pipeline? Don't worry, those who are not aware of CI/CD, okay, continuous integration, continuous deployment. Those kind of thought processes are still planned in inception phase. Okay, so this is a gist of your full-fledged discipline agile life cycle. Now, variety of this life cycle. Before I touch upon the variety of life cycle, just looking at the time, guys, sorry. Before I touch upon the variety of life cycles, I'm going to talk about this governance model. All of my agile friends, including me, myself, we hate agile. I'm sorry, the governance, isn't it? In the world of agile, yes, we do. However, the governance way, the way governance work in agile versus traditional is completely different. This is called a lightweight governance. When you think about governance, oh my God, there's going to be auditing, there's going to be control, there's going to be reviews, there's going to be lot documentation, and my goodness, not really. In the world of discipline agile, governance is agile. Governance can be lean. We talk about the milestones which are very lightweight. If the reviews do happen, of course reviews should be there in the world of agile projects, no doubt, but a very quick review. It's basically enabling, not kind of a controlling the team, but the whole aspect of the governance is enabling the team. So you see here multiple milestones, right? Starting from a first milestone, which is called stakeholder vision, as I already talked about, the visioning exercise. What is the milestone? An important event in the or completion of an event in your, of a completion of a work in your project, an important event in your life cycle of any project. So for the first milestone, which is lightweight, governed, stakeholder vision, that means my visioning exercise is done. I have communicated my vision to probably the team which is available. Proven architecture, part of the construction, that means the architecture visioning which I have done and the high level architecture which I've been talking about, is it really going to be fulfilling my purpose or not? So throughout the construction, I always talk about the viability. So that there is a third thing called sufficient functionality through the viability model. So through the viability, that means solution architecture. First of all, solution architecture which I designed, is it good enough or not? Second, my project, is there an addition of the scope, addition of the requirements from the respective stakeholders, and is this project still feasible enough, viable enough, doable enough or not? Worst case, I need to take a call or a review, cancel the project, keep it on hold or cancel it. Simple as that. So sufficient functionality milestones say that minimum business increment, which give you a value to the stakeholders, saying that, okay, this is the low key feature right now. For example, a website designer homepage done in a 1 day. I go to the stakeholders, see this map in a day or 2 days. And then once you have sufficient functionality, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to test everything to deploy in production. So it's a production ready. And once I start deploying, I work with the operations team hand in glove, thanks to the DevOps strategies nowadays. And I have, at the end of the day, I've got a delighted stakeholders. Excellent view of your lightweight milestones, my friends. So you saw 6 milestones here. Now, very quickly taking you to a world of disciplined agile delivery life cycles. The first one, okay? The first one is nothing but a basic life cycle, we call it as. Okay, this is a Scrum-based life cycle. Such a big diagram. I'm not sure if you're still able to visualize this slide, or every content, but don't worry too much. I'll ensure that you understand this. See these three phases first of all: inception, construction, transition. These are the phase-wise. So you have a phase, logical phase is still available there, okay? Which probably you might not find in Scrum, because Scrum model just talk about construction phase. You have two more, as I said. You have a lightweight milestones also, as we just discussed. What is changed from the Scrum? The generic term of iteration is being used here. One. Two, if you look at the sprint you will not be used. So sprint review, sprint retrospective, you will not see those kind of things. So you say iteration review, iteration backlog, iteration retrospective. Another very important thing that you could probably see here is the work item list instead of a product backlog. Okay, you see it here, the work item list. This is nothing but your product backlog. The work items. Why the work item is being chosen? It could be the smallest amount of a requirement or a ask I can fit into it. And when I talk to the next level of the life cycle, I'll probably have a more detailed view of this. How is the work item list has been utilized? So what I do, let's say there are 10 different work items from a priority perspective. Before even I define, how do I define them? So obviously through all this thing that you could see in terms of, it starts from the portfolio management world. You remember in traditional method also, from a portfolio come program come projects, and you have a programs and projects and you go on. So you have a vision, mission, goals, objectives from the company, and the strategies define the multiple portfolios in the organization. Same here. Those stages doesn't go away. The same thing applies there. So the portfolio is visioning is still being done, and your respective projects, right? Forget about a program for a while, but respective project visioning it's been trying to get converted to the productized vision. The productized vision initiate those respective endeavors of the projects, or called projects. Okay. So this is a project-based life cycle primarily, and if you look at your initial modeling, planning, and organization, your initial level of plan, as I mentioned, is does still happen in your so-called iteration 0, right? So this conceptualization, traditional word, right, life cycle word, is happening here. But lot of you in the world of Agile might be thinking that this is a detailed plan. Absolutely not. Generally, you might take about 3 to 4 weeks to do the inception. That's my experience is. Okay. After that, you have your list of the number of requirements which are prioritized, and over a period of time you can always do the reprioritization. Every iteration completion, the feedback goes, and I can do a reprioritization. So the work item list which are prioritized will be taken into first iteration, and first iteration will have a iteration backlog. So every so-called user story within the iteration backlog would be defined into tasks. So we do not use a word called user story, but iteration backlog is directly broken into tasks, unlike Scrum, which is a user story and then task. At end of the, let's say, 2-week iteration. So at end of the first 2 weeks, the scope within first 2 weeks should be frozen. No changes allowed for the first 2 weeks. That's kind of a disadvantage as well. Okay, I am coming to that. So at the end of that, you have something called MBI, or you may not have MBI. So, but you have some kind of a consumable solution at the end of the first 2 weeks, first iteration. Some of the feedback cycle goes. So the feedback goes from your iteration review, iteration retrospective, and those items which are having, let's say, defects or things like that will go back again to the work item pool, and this again will be prioritized. You never know, some very high important no level of new requirements all of a sudden came, thanks to the governance, compliance, etc., 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 for the business, and new requirements all of a sudden came. Next iteration will definitely prioritize it. So we talk about risk value based life cycle also, right? So higher the risk that compliance kind of a requirement takes, earlier it's the better. So the upfront planning is done in iteration 0, of course. At the end of the day, at the end of the 2 iterations, if you feel that this consumed solution in every iteration, first iteration as well as second iteration, okay, it's now ready to be released into production, I will release. Until then, I will not release into the production. So if you have 4 iterations of 2 weeks each, I will wait for 2 months before I move it to the production, and of course, the ongoing support, etc. There's advantage and disadvantage for this. Okay, advantage obviously over traditional, no doubt, because you see the low-hanging fruit in terms of consumable solution every 2 weeks, and probably every 4 weeks or 8 weeks, depends. You can release them into the production. So this is called your Agile life cycle, which is Scrum based. Okay, not too different from a typical Scrum life cycle. This is exactly the replica, because when do you use this? So any one of you new into the Agile game, right? You always start discipline Agile with the Scrum based life cycle and move forward. So is there only one life cycle? No, there are 7. So this is another difference between your Scrum and discipline Agile. So you have 6 more life cycles. Why? Because guys, you and I are unique. Same with the projects also. Our projects are unique. Your situation or the contexts are unique as well. And because we all live in our day-to-day unique situations, we need options, or we need a flexibility to choose our own life cycle and not just stick to only Agile. And that's where the second part of the life cycle or type of the life cycle come, called lean. Thanks to the great Toyota production system days, I can't never forget those manufacturing world days, the great Toyota production system, which introduced a concept of lean, right? Which is nothing but either minimize the waste or eliminate the waste altogether, if that's possible. One, say it's a flow based life cycle. Okay, it's rather than iteration based life cycle, it's a flow based, it's a continued flow of work. So if you look at the life cycle here, okay, what happens is you still have those 3 phases, you still have those milestones which are very lightweight milestones. However, if you look at it, the primary difference comes from the perspective of your those sprint planning, sprint review, or rather iteration planning, iteration review, iteration retrospective, those kind of ceremonies which are prescriptive in the Agile life cycle or Scrum based life cycle. It's not here at all. Not here in the sense it's not prescriptive. It's left to your choice. It's left to you as a team whether you really want to do it or not. It's open. That's a primary important difference between the two. Second difference here, if you see the work item list, here also you have a work item list. However, in the Agile life cycle, the Scrum based Agile, the first one, in that you prioritize the based on iteration, isn't it? So you need to still do the planning upfront. Here, your planning happens on GIT model, just in time. Why? Because you never know at a upfront, in day 1, what could be happening in day 4. I really don't know. All right. So this particular lean based life cycle came through the pain areas of, well, guys, I'm Agile, but then do I wait for my 2 weeks to have a consumable solution? Or do I wait for my 4 weeks to get into production? I don't have a time. I need to, after 3 days in my iteration, so-called in Agile, I need to change, I need to reprioritize, or I need to add something, some big defect has come in the first 3 days of a deployment, or sorry, the first 3 days of your testing that you might have done. Wow. So is this kind of a situation possible in Agile? No, you have to still wait till the iteration is over, right? This is where the lean came up. So yeah, continuous flow of the work, whereby work items are pooled based on capacity of the team. This is where the maturity of the team is absolutely crucial. The typical team which is new to Agile world will not directly jump into lean. First, they will start with Agile Life Cycle. Then they slowly, once they become mature in terms of how to understand each other work, and then pull the work from the upstream. When the downstream is got chopped up, I don't pull the work from upstream. So I'll have a separate session on lean, sometime when I'm planning of. So we'll talk about lean concept altogether there. So I have a continuous flow based on team's capacity of work. So what I do is I minimize the delay, I minimize the waste, and maximize the throughput. Okay. So my efficiency of each member of a team increases, and hence my entire productivity as a whole increases as well. So the lean life cycle comes. Now, if you look at very quickly, sorry guys, just looking at the time, but we still have a good time. If you look at the kind of the flow of work, okay, the straightforward work are all self-explanatory. Okay, what happens is the change request from the operations. Now here, what happens is there's no iteration based model, isn't it? It's a JIT model. So the 4 blocks that you see in the left side, right, under new features, like the business value, these are nothing but 4 sources of your work items from the pool. So first talks about some of the work items, so-called requirements, are important because of the business value. They derive the business value. Okay, so I need to prioritize them. There are 10 work items here. I need to prioritize 2 or 3 of them based on either this base value or the business value that you get at the end of the day. Then some of the items could be of a very fixed milestones, very fixed targets, right? For example, compliance milestones. Some compliance related projects which have an absolute definite date by which it has to complete. The project has to complete. Probably I need to do this. Again, this is a project-based life cycle. Please understand. The Agile and Lean both are project-based life cycles. So I have a fixed timelines. So please prioritize it immediately on the spot, which is not possible Agile, but possible here. I can pull that work item from fixed delivery date if that's important. I compare between the business value work item and fixed delivery date item, and whichever having a more impact, I just pull in based on capacity. Third, expedition. What do you mean by expedition? For example, one of the defects as a part of the change come from the field, come from the DevOps team or from operations team, for example. Come back. Oh, this is a big impact because the stakeholder already not happy with it, right? Go and quickly fix it. Prioritize that. So instantaneously put up a GIT on that, just in time, and prioritize that. So expedite. So your source could be expedite, or your source could be tangible. Something which is not intangible, something which is related to training. So this is my wonder. This is something which all of us miss out in an Agile projects. Who will worry about a team's training? Do you all assume? And of course, every assumption get a risk, whether it's a traditional or Agile. Every assumption has a risk. You assume that your teams are all super smart? No. You need a continuous training depending on what kind of a projects that you have. Or like what kind of work you need a trainings and what you need to. You can't just end to end keep delivering, build deploy measure. You can't. So you need that kind of intangible that has to be prioritized all of a sudden. So these are 4 different buckets of the work items where you can prioritize your work items from. That's a primary difference. Sorry, one of the differences between this and the Agile life cycle. Okay. Third one. Before I get into the third one, guys, if you look at it, the phases are now inception, project incepted. Transition, we know what to be done in the transition. The phases now will start disappearing in the releases. So when you come to second release of the same product, let's say you are building a health app on the Android or iOS platform using discipline agile model, and you are using the either agile Scrum based or lean based. Now you know what happens in inception and transition. Pretty much you have all defined in the first version of the product. Now second release of the product. So second release, you will have a very small inception. They will be still there, just a small revisioning, reprioritizing, replanning maybe if required for a week or something, and then immediately go into construction. So if you look at it, this time period, because I've gone through first release, shrinks. And same with the transition. When you're trying to hand it over, or when you try to deploy or transit to the operations team, it shrinks as well. In the third release, it goes further shrink. And over time, what will happen? Your inception and transition will completely go away. Completely go away. Only construction will remain. And that's a birth of continuous delivery life cycles. Okay? Continuous delivery life cycle. Very experienced teams probably go towards a continuous delivery, typically the lean one. I'll talk about that in a while. See this? N plus release, you don't need INT. By default integrated in construction, you know that. You have all the data about I. Then the third release or nth release, you don't need T also. So only C. What does it mean? Build, deploy, build, deploy, build, deploy, build, deploy, build, deploy. Simple. That's where you come to the first kind of a continuous life cycle, which is called the agile continuous. What's the difference between the agile full-fledged and a continuous agile? There is a difference. So in a continuous agile life cycle, if you look at this, point number one, this particular life cycle generally do not have inception and transition phase. That's the difference. So you immediately deploy transfer. Typically what happens is your phase, it is still kind of a life cycle where you have a flow based approach. Okay, just like a lean, you have a flow based approach. The flow goes on based on the requirement prioritization or work item prioritization, and the similar things keep going on. Your ceremonies again may not happen, just like a lean. But the difference here between this and the lean one, if you look at the kind of the continuous agile, you're talking about the deployment of your particular version of a product on a continuous basis. In terms of every week I can deploy. I don't need to wait till my complete release is out. My release, say for example, is broken into 4 parts, 4 weeks. Every week I can go into production. Every week. So every small incremental small incremental value which I am going to give it to my stakeholders, I'm going to derive out of that as an outcome. I don't need to wait for all the 4 weeks, unlike in agile where I wait for 2 or 4 weeks to get my release into production. That's a primary difference, because it's a continuously churning out. Every week I can churn out a new release every week. Okay. And based on that principle, based on lean principle, you've got lean continuous delivery. What is lean continuous delivery? Just like a lean cycle, lean life cycle, work items list, but this is like a daily release, right? Or once in 3 days, once in 2 days, once in a worst case, once in a week, kind of. But continuous releasing, right? And then again, these 4 buckets remain the same, just like lean. The difference between lean and continuous lean is this continuously been delivered. This is where your CI/CD pipeline need to be automated, and your team should be matured enough to understand CI/CD pipeline for sure. which means my deployment, okay, transitioning, all are tightly integrated. I can every day, I'm going to, probably one of my next session, I'm going to take a case study, okay, and I'm going to talk about a great experience of Intuit as a company. How did they deploy the product? How they failed miserably, and then they came out with this so-called lean startup model. So the lean life cycle you previously kind of reflects your lean startup, the book which is written by Eric Lies. So lean continues build deploy as I showed you that C. No I, no T. Okay. The next life cycle is something called exploratory. When you have a startup, let's say you have a business startup, any business for that matter, any domain, this is like a life cycle, which is not an actual kind of a life. This is a prerequisite kind of a preceding to your actual agile and lean life cycles. What happens? This happens in inception. So during inception phase, a lot of stakeholders might not be quite aware as to what exactly they want or they need. So try to experiment through the hypothesis. So my first experiment, I don't know what exactly I need, but let's try to build something and let's see what comes out. First build miserably failed, right? Second build failed, third build failed, but at least I'll have a lessons learned out of each build. So what we do here is we try to explore based on the situations that I have, based on variables which I have. I try to build some small solution, right? So I build that, immediately deploy. So we call it as a MVP, minimum viable product. I deploy it and I immediately measure it through the metrics. Metrics also, metrics play a role here as well. So I do measure. Is it meeting my stakeholder requirements? Not at all. 10% only. Go back. So then repeat. I can have multiple pivots, right, or prototypes going on simultaneously as well. When Eric Lies wrote the book, the great guy of a lean thinking, lean startup, he talked about the sequential versions of the pivots or prototypes. Discipline Agile went over top of it and say that you can have a multiple simultaneous pivots which can be possible. Okay, so you never know which can work, or a combination of two pivots can work. So you continuously again build, deploy, observe, build, deploy, observe. You do it until you have your value-based, okay, output, which gets generated, and then you're going to take it through the agile or lean lifecycle mode to productize it. That's called exploratory, exploration through a hypothesis testing. You test, right, and then once you are confident about it, you try to get into the productize mode. So the next one, as I see here, it's called a program life cycle. Program life cycle talks about team of teams. When you have multiple teams, I'm sure you guys would have heard about SAFe for that matter, right? The scaled agile. So when you have a multiple teams geographically separated out, okay, what do? Some team might be using agile, some team might be using lean concept, so and so forth. You don't dictate, you don't prescribe. So you in a program life cycle, it's nothing but multiple teams doing a lot of work simultaneously. And there might be dependencies between each of the teams. So this is where you'll have great program manager as a whole, or a program sponsor, then a program manager, and then the architect owner, and then each of the teams will have its own architect owner, sub owner, whatever you call. You'll have a high level or a top level, you have the architect owner, and the cross-functional teams within each, we call sub teams. Right? So the integration of the sub-teams deliverables, dependencies between them need to be ironed out somewhere. So this so-called scaled framework of a project get into a program whereby the multiple deliverables, I wouldn't say multiple projects running, but you could assume that multiple projects running in the same, which need to be integrated together. Right? So this is where your program lifecycle comes into play. if you look at the program life cycle, you still have inception phase and construction phase, but you don't have a transition phase because transition phase is taken care of, okay, into the day-to-day operations, okay, through the program. And the last life cycle before I stop for the day and open for questions, this is called flex life cycle. This is latest introduction in the DA toolkit of a life cycle. When you talk about flex life cycle, it's nothing but a value stream based. What is a value stream? The end-to-end value which can be governed and given, both G and G I use it, governed and given to your stakeholders. Value based, that means if you just look at a diagram itself, is a self-explanatory, guys, right? Whether it's the internal stakeholder, external stakeholder. The whole objective of is deliver a value. Whether it's a combination of multiple programs, okay. So this life cycle, what work at a portfolio level. It goes surpasses the program level. It works at a portfolio level. It can have a multiple programs, and obviously, hence because multiple programs, it might have a multiple life cycles within it. And then there are some of the common stuff here, which we call blades. So I know not a right time to talk about detail in blades, but the capability, right, for your organization capability. For example, continuous improvement, governance, security, IT operations, support. All this we call it the hexagon, blades. These are kind of a common blades which are available. Ultimately, it starts with a stakeholder, it ends at the stakeholder. I'll repeat, it starts with the stakeholder, the life cycle, it ends at the stakeholder. And one stakeholder might be served by multiple teams, and one team can serve probably multiple stakeholders. Right? So this is the latest introduction, and if you want to have more details about this, this has been latest introduction done in 2019 through a company called what name? There's a great organization which was acquired by PMI, and the Flex Life Cycle is a part of that organization. Okay, so you'll have the details on a PMI.org website as well. Okay, so this sums up to the last slide. How do we evolve in terms of life cycle paths? So this is how you evolve. From a traditional V model, okay, you evolve to the Agile. From Agile, you have two paths to evolve. For a team can evolve. Either a lean, which means a continuous flow based from iteration based, or a continuous delivery Agile. Okay. From either of this, either lean or continuous delivery, from lean you go to continuous lean, and from Agile you go to continuous Agile. This is the highest level of a maturity that most of the mature organization or mature teams will do. Now, there is a quick distinction which is available with me, guys. If you are kind of interested, of course, this is there in the PMI website as well. I just, a very short summary. I thought I'll just put it for you in an Excel sheet. So how do you choose a life cycle? Obviously, there are some advantages, disadvantages, and when do you use each one of them? If you look at it, Agile and Lean, both are project-based life cycle, whereas your continuous one are a product-based. Giving a 30-second hint on your project versus product. Project-based meaning your team is fixed. I'm sorry, your team varies from project to project, could vary unless you carry the same team. Product-based meaning you have a continuously same team which is being on. So the benefit of a product team is called long-lived team. Its benefit is people have a greater cohesion because they know each other always. So in a continuous life cycle, they always benefit each other. So these are the kind of advantages, disadvantages which I've got in detail. Too much to talk about in this. But to end with this, just for you before you go, we have a training workshop coming up on the 4th to 7th August and 10th to 14th August, right? And this is going to be typical evening time. That's the upcoming batch that we have coming up. Now this is a 3-day kind of a training. Sorry, was probably for the PMP one. Sorry about that. Yeah, but this is those who are interested on PMP one. Yeah, this is a slide for them. Okay, so PMP workshop is now starting off very quickly in the first week of August. So we are also becoming flexible. So 9 days, so that only 4 hours per day. You don't get loaded too much. This is an online workshop which we continuously do. Thanks to the COVID situation, we didn't have a choice but to adapt and adopt, right, in a true agile fashion. And then we have a discipline agile, as I already spoke about. This training are coming up August batch. So are you really ready? Okay, with this, I'm going to leave you with this slide, and any questions, let me look at my, this is a very interesting slide, and I always love this slide, right? This is what you are, and unless you play agile way, sorry, choice is yours. Thank you, guys. All right, let me just pull up my question panel. Give me a moment. Separately, make it a little bigger. And answer your questions. All right, come on, guys, quick. I know for some of you might be dinner time in the evening, but yeah, you can still probably ask. Oh, thank you so much, Ashish. Thanks for your valuable feedback. Appreciate that. Even I also have an improvement area. So while I would obviously be open to your constructive thoughts as well. Please give me your constructive feedback as well. If you think that I need to improve, or of course if you have a doubt, guys, please feel free and ask. I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still here. I've got 5 more minutes, guys, to go, so you can still ask the questions. Manoj, thank you so much. Absolutely, my friend Manoj. Manoj, the funding happens just like you're funding in a normal project. But you know what? Let's say if you are a CFO of a company, okay, and you say that, guys, I have a fixed budget. I've done my budgeting for the entire financial year. Nothing can be added. Only my contingency reserve or contingency margin can be played against. That too also after exception approval might take a long time. The funding here is little different, my friend. Funding here is agile, is a dynamic. So the CFOs now need to change. I saw a nice webinar actually especially for the CFO guys for the funding part in agile. So such a lovely talk which has happened today in the organization. Those even respective procurement and finance guys need to change. And I can probably next session when I talk about my own case study also, I talk about how did I make them change. We can't afford a very traditional approach of funding. So funding could be probably every monthly base, Manoj. Every month I need to revisit to my funding that has been envisaged in the beginning of a project. Every month I need to review, like how you have every month cash flow. Okay, so Rakesh is asking, Are Goyal sir, very good evening. So nice to see you, Goyal sir. Thank you so much. After a long time I saw you. So let's say what is RC Goyal saying? May I say that DA means changing terminology and different life cycle are decided based upon the project or even at a different stages? Excellent question, Goyal sir. So your life cycles can be changed, okay, just based on your context, right, of the team, the situation in which the team currently are at or is at, and based on my comfort level, I might select different life cycle. I'll give you a classic example, Goel sir, and everybody else. The real problem in a practical problem with me, I had a agile based life cycle because I had a project deliveries to do in the software world in one of my previous companies. Now what happened? There were few defects in the product and there were few tickets to support. from operations standpoint. So our team was kind of a long lead, and they were kind of supporting the tickets as well. So we didn't have a demarcation between agile and lean. So we had this kind of a team which who only do agile. Now, if I think about it, if you have a ticket, support ticket, or you have a defect to be fixed, are you going to wait for 2 weeks of my iteration? Impossible. My stakeholder will kill me. I need JIT model. So what we did, we switched immediately, Goel sir, into Kanban based. First implementation, we never did that. We left it a team. Actually, there was a team of 9 people, okay, 9-member team, and we left to their choice. That's where discipline agile comes. It's an absolute similar thing which coming from agile background, but the real differentiator, Goel sir, is it give you a choice to the team. Change it if you are not the whole aspect is the stakeholder value. So you change it at a given point of time. Any more questions, my friends? Oh yes, thank you so much, Goel sir. Whenever I see your name, I see your names in multiple forums as well, so I remember you. Manoj, thanks for asking. You have a contact number mentioned here. Just call up them, right? And you will know they'll help you with this in the terms of PDF. Don't worry about it. So 1 hour, 1 video, which all of you know very well. What else? What else can I do for you guys? I probably might have overburdened by a minute, but it's okay. I can probably take a last question if you have. I'm going to come back. If you don't have a question, think about it. And I'm going to come back with another kind of a case study webinar in the month of August. And we'll talk about a real case study of disciplined agile, not just agile. A disciplined agile implementation. So be ready. Till that time, thank you very much, guys. And have a great day, great week ahead, and great weekend ahead, my friends. Bye.